All right, guys, let's try to get through Django queries. Let's do it together so we get some student involvement. I already forked it over and cloned it down just to save a couple seconds. I did not install from requirements.txt. So I know some students mentioned they had trouble with the versions that were set here. If you did, again, I think a lot of you guys were able to resolve it by upgrading the Psycho PG version or the Django version or both. But if you're still struggling with that, hopefully we get help for you. But I believe this worked for me when I tried it. So let's validate that, or if I'm lying, then I'm lying. So Django queries, I'm going to do a virtual environment first. So venv is the name of the folder I want to create. Short. Then I want to source that, so I actually get into my virtual environment. All right, so I'm in my virtual environment. Next thing I need to do is Python pip install -r requirements.txt. Okay, so it's installing a bunch of stuff, mostly Django and Psycho PG. That seems to have gone well. So for this particular challenge, where we have the Django project created, it's actually a nested folder relationship, so hopefully you got to the right level. There's a test file that has everything we need to run for it. So it's actually going to load some fixtures, so we don't need to seed our database. It automatically gets done with the test suite. And we also don't need to create a database. Going through the test suite, we'll create a temporary database, load it with some data, and then it'll destroy that database after the test suite is completed. So that's kind of a nice feature with Django. So we installed Django Psycho PG. We should be able to just do Python manage.py test.
I have a question.
Yep.
So for the fixtures, what files are they allowed to be? Because this one's a YAML.
Yeah,
are they
so
allowed to be like JSON files?
Yeah, so again, if we look at the documentation page, I know they mentioned JSON and YAML. I don't know if like other formats like XML might be valid. So Django fixtures, I think those are two listed on the Django fixtures page. So yeah, they mentioned, it looks like it could be JSON, XML, or YAML. So you have your pick. It's just some format that it knows how to parse. YAML is just another, again, markup language or data language. All right, so yeah, you can take a look at the products. Again, it's kind of easy. I think YAML is, again, a little easier to parse, but it looks like it's just loading a bunch of product instances into our database. So I was in the wrong level, so I went to ORM queries since we have those nested folders. Now I want to run Python manage.py test. Okay, so essentially it ran however many tests I had in my test suite. So again, this is using test case from Django test, which I assume is similar to unit test. But they are a bunch of test cases. There's 19 test cases, so a lot to go through. One tip, if you have not discovered it. So again, this ran 19 tests and it failed 19 tests. That's not generally helpful for me to know that I'm failing all 19 tests. I kind of want to take it one by one. So I got all these E's, which meant there was some error or I failed the test. So if you are interested, you can run the test suite and add on a -- fail fast. This flag will allow the test suite to run and it will stop on the first test that it fails. So you don't need to see the output for 19 tests. You're going to keep failing 18 of them while you're working on one. Fail fast will let you run the test suite. If it fails one, it'll stop. It won't keep continuing trying to run the other tests. I find this preferable because I want to focus on one at a time. So I'm going to run fail fast. All right, there you go. So it ran one test and it failed it. So it's not going to proceed on. So it looks like it ran test 01 get all products, and we did not get the correct results. So let's start with that one and we'll go in order. So here, we need to implement the functionality in product CRUD. So that is something we're importing from product CRUD here. So there's no functionality in here. We need to go through this class, implement methods, and create the methods based on what the test cases are looking to access. So here, obviously, get all products is just returning nothing. We have a pass statement. We need to get it to pass here. For this particular test case, it's actually very simple. I can kind of cheat and look at what we're comparing against It looks like it's using the product model, doing objects.all to get all of the products back from the model. So this is the expected result. We need the actual result to match the expected result. In this case, it's very simple. I'm going to just copy what I expect to write. So we go to product cred, and that's what I would return. Now, that's not usually how all these test cases work. You don't want to look at the answer and then just copy the answer. But in this case, this is the exact query we want to run on our model, right? We want this is a select star and just returns all the products in our products table. So assuming that's what we want, get all products, I think that should be correct. Let's just run our test suite with fail fast, and let's see if we pass that test case. Okay, so notice it ran 2 tests this time. So if we look at the summary, it passed the first one. That's what that green dot is showing. But then we failed the second one, which is test find by model. All right, so again, fail fast. Let's just kind of focus on one test at a time, which I prefer. Up to you if you think that's beneficial. But let's take a look at the next test case. So the one I'm failing now is test find by model. So here, it looks like they're using the primary key. In this case, I can't just copy and paste it. We are not given the ID. We are looking by model name. So this is where we need to actually make sure we understand how to do our querying and get the correct result from it. All right, so if I go back to my test file, I don't know if split screen would make sense here. I'm just going to bounce back and forth for now. We need to create that method. So we need to create find by model. I think it should be named find by model name, but we'll go with this. I guess these are all going to be class methods, so we'll go along with that. All right, how do we write this query? Well, we need to return by model name. So let's search our product model. We need to go through all of our objects. But now we don't want to get it by primary key, right? We want to get by model name. So let's have a comment. Return by product name. So we'll pass in a parameter of model name. Yes, model name. All right, so we take in a parameter of model name, and then that we should be able to use one of our querying functions to get what we want. In this case, I know it off the top of my head, so I'm going to use the get method. And then instead of looking through the ID, we need to look through a different field. So actually, I'm not sure what my model looks like. So let's go to our models.py and check it out. So this is what our product model looks like. So we have a bunch of fields. Notice that ID is not a field in our model. Django automatically will create the ID field. So that is the primary key for all of our models. But aside from that, we have manufacturer, we have model, category, description, a whole bunch of other fields. In this case, we want to look it up by model name. So we have a model field here. So that is the field I'm going to pass in to my get method. So model is a field name. And then the item, like the actual value I'm looking for, is model name. All right, so again, get is another query method. We've seen .all. Get gets a specific record rather than retrieving all of them. So this is going to be, if you want to, we're not going to do SQL for all of these, but if we were doing a SQL query for this, we select star from whatever our table name might be, where model equals model name. Pretty similar, I think pretty easy to see how this corresponds to SQL. But this hopefully returns what we expected. So again, looking at our test, we pass in a model name, and we should get back ID, the model that has ID 3, because that is the item that has heavy duty steel. If we looked in our fixtures file to validate that, if I look for heavy duty steel, notice that this model has primary key 3. So that is why the test case, if I keep find that, that's why we know that it's supposed to be ID 3, so we could use that on this side. But on find by model, we need to use the model name, not the ID. All right, let's see if this passes. All right, we still do not pass. Product has no attribute object because I make typos all the time. We want objects. Sorry about that. Let's try that again. All right, there we go. we ran 3 tests. So we passed 2, on to the 3rd. Let's get some students' responses here. So the next,
Hey, sorry to interrupt. Can you go back to just explain why we need a class passed in? Because I was able to pass pretty much all of these without passing a class. I was able to just do model name.
Right. So good question. So these are class methods. So by default, we have to accept the class as the first parameter. We're not using the class. So a good suggestion might be we could actually make these static methods. And they'd work the same. So again, static methods don't require any information about the class. They're just kind of standalone methods. In this case, this gives us access to the class if we need it. I'm not sure if we use it for any other of these answers. I'm thinking we don't. So we can make these static methods. It's not going to change anything. So if you guys are up for that, again, if you make it a class method, though, you must take in class as the first parameter, similar to how instance methods for Python classes take in the self as the first parameter, even though we don't pass it. So yeah, SUTEV is correct. We are not passing the class name here, but Django automatically is going to pass it if we are specifying that we have class methods. So in this case, I'm going to change to static methods. I think that should be fine in this case. Lyman?
So when you make it a class method, do you really need to do that because you plan on using that method in another class? And it needs to, am I correct in that, saying that?
Not quite, if I understood your comment.
So I'm just thinking, so you create a method, so say you're going to be utilizing this functionality in another class. Or maybe I'm thinking about it wrong. I'm trying to think about.
Yeah, so again, this class parameter, if we make this a class method, all this is saying is we have access to product CRUD. So now if I had like a class level attribute of description that was, this is my product CRUD class, then I could access it through this class variable and say, what is the description?
Okay.
I wanted to print out. So again, this class variable only gives you access, like its purpose is to give you access to certain class level attributes. And again, this is going to get off our track a little bit, but I just want to add this in. What if I had inheritance? So I said fancy product CRUD. And I'm just going to highlight why using CLS is better than using this. So we had 2 examples. I could write product CRUD here. You might be like, well, what's the difference? Like, why do we need that class variable? The reason is for inheritance. So if I had an inherited class, product CRUD, again, I know this is not what we intend for this challenge, but thought might be willing to discuss it. So fancy product CRUD inherits from product CRUD. Let's say we override the description here and add a new description. This is my fancy product CRUD class. So now we have a different description. With these 2 examples, this one is always going to print out the product CRUD answer. But with inheritance, we might want to use this description instead. If we have a class method, CLS will point to fancy product CRUD or product CRUD, depending on what class called it. So in this case, class description will either be, this is my fancy product CRUD class, or this is my product CRUD class. It makes it dynamic so that we don't need to kind of hard code or know who called us. CLS will point to the class that actually called us. So that's why we use class methods. But in this case, going off SUTEV's maybe comment or question, I think static method works here too. So we don't need access to this class variable. I don't think. Hopefully, none of the future tests need them. Well, let's make these static methods so we don't have to worry about that class variable. But all right, so we passed test case number 2. Let's go to test case number 3. We want to get the last record that was inserted. How do we go about doing this? Let's call on a few individuals. Brendan, could you help me with this test case? So we need to implement last record. So I'm going to create that method here. Sorry, Brendan Dowtry. Yeah. So static method. The name was last record. When I use we don't take in any parameter, and we want to return the last record. Brendan Dowtry, do you have a suggestion for this?
We have to go up and I don't know, I guess it would be the person's last record. I don't know where that is in the model.
Yeah, sure. Sure. So in case we don't know, we can always look up Django model reference. I think that's what I want. So again, Django has pretty good documentation, so take advantage of it. What am I looking for here? Maybe I'm looking for Django query sets. If we're dealing with query sets, so query set reference. All right, there we go. Query set API reference. This is how we query objects. So notice we have all these methods. Again, it can take a while to find what you're looking for, because obviously I think I know what the method is, but let's say we want to find last inserted record. Yeah, it's not going to be easy to find. So you're going to have to kind of go through all the items. You can kind of gauge based on the name. So if I were scanning this, let's try to find it. All right, so my eyes kind of went to over here. So there's a first. There's also a last. That seems like something that might be helpful. So first returns the first object matched by the query set, or none if there's no matching object. Likewise, last works like first, returns the last object in a query set. So this should be something that we can use. Again, it depends how our query set's sorted, but I believe it's by insertion order. So if we just did something like product objects.last, I would expect that that should be the last inserted record. Again, I'm going off what the documentation is kind of hinting me towards. So if I do last, let's see what that returns. So run fail fast. All right, up to 4 tests. So we passed test number 3, we're on to 4. So again, half the battle here is just knowing what methods, what capabilities Django is providing for you. And I'm not saying it's easy or should be obvious. The hard part is reading documentation, right? I have 40 functions I could go through. Which one sounds like the one that might do it for me? And it might take some, checking, like maybe I need, exists might do it for me, but then I read, nope, this is not the one I want. Anyway, all right, so we're making some progress here. Let's go to our next test case. Maybe I'll do a split screen now so we don't have to hop back and forth.
Hey, do you mind if I ask you a question about that, Ankur?
Absolutely.
So when I was trying to do that, I tried to use negative indexing to get the last item, and it said negative indexing wasn't supported. And is that because I'm trying to call it off of a class, and you have to build that functionality into it?
I believe the issue you ran into is the fact that we're not actually using lists. This is a query
Okay.
set, which is like a list. I'm sure there's a way
Gotcha.
to convert a query set to a list, like we do for Google. Convert query set to list. They are similar data types, but not the same. So I bet you can probably pass in a query set to a list. Yeah, so you can wrap it with a list. So if you did it this way, let's try it doing it Tanner's way. So he wanted to use it with a list. So tests are on the right here. So this is a query set, right? So objects is a query set. What if we convert that to a list? Let's see if I do it like this, and then maybe I could do -1. I'm curious if this works. So now we convert it to a list, we should be able to use negative indexing. Query sets do not natively support it, is what I'm guessing. Let's see if this works. That failed. Manager is not iterable. Do I need to do .all here? Let's try that. Okay, so yeah, you can convert it to a list and use list properties. That's another way to go about it. So if you weren't familiar with the last method and wanted to work with lists, yeah, there's many ways to solve these. So if you were able to find a solution, that is the main battle here. But last is a nice handy daily function, so we can use that. All right, let's go to test number 4. Find a test by the product rating. So we want to implement a function called by rating. I'll go with that, and then I'll get hopefully a helper here. Let's go with Rod Flowers. Could you help me out with this next test? So we want to write a method. I'm going to make it a static method since that's what we're going with. It's going to be called by rating. Again, I'm just going off what the test case is asking for. So we have a method called by rating. It looks like it takes in some rating. So let's say desired rating. Rod Flowers, do you have any suggestions on maybe a query method that could help us achieve this method?
Yeah, for this one, I had a return product.objects.filter, and the rating equals the desired rating.
Absolutely. That sounds like what we want to do. So again, filter, This is a very useful function. So we're just kind of getting familiar with some of our functions. So all returns every object. Get returns a specific object that you want. Filter will return one or more. So that's the difference between get and filter. Get, you're expecting one result. Filter can return one or more results. So that's a where clause. The where clause is saying any rating that matches this, versus get, you're expecting one. I mean, I guess they're both using the where clause, but make sure you understand the usage between get and filter. All right, so we're matching the rating field, and we're just matching it, finding a value that has a desired rating. So this might return one or more items. In this case, looking at test 4, we are expecting 5 items returned back. Now, if we use get will only return the first one that it finds. So if I use get here, let's try a get and see what happens. So let's see what our test case says. Okay, so notice we still failed that. Let's see if it tells us why. Get returned more than one product, return 5. All right, so it looks like get returns more than one, but that is an error for Django's sake. So if you try using get with something that returns more than one, it looks like that would actually throw an error for Django's side. So this is where we want to use filter. And then that should let us return more than one. So let's write comments. All right, so get is when you only expect one result. Filter is when you may get more than one. So we ran this. We are up to 5 test cases. Thank you, Rod Flowers, for suggesting this. So filter, the field, and what the field value should be. So again, just like the where clause for a SQL statement. All right, let's keep it going. We got a handful of these to do. Next function is within a rating range. So this is gonna be a little different. It's not just one rating value. We have a whole series of ratings we want to get through. So this one is gonna be called by rating range. We take in 2 values, min rating and max rating. Okay, so what shall we do here? Let's call on our good friend, Courtney Smith. Could you help me out with get rating or by rating range?
I would guess that it's using filter again.
Okay, so we're going to return products, objects, filter. All right, how do we filter based on a range?
Well, I don't know, but I would assume the greater and less than signs, but I'm not sure.
Yep, there's, again, there might be more than one way to do this, but there is a range function. So this one gets a little tricky. This is some weird syntax, but if I look up how to get range Django query, again, Googling is a skill. How do I filter query objects by date range in Django? Seems like something similar to what I'm doing. So when you go to Stack Overflow, usually they have good answers. So this is how we use a range function within a field. So here, date is going to be a field. Again, it's that weird syntax of double underscore and then the function we want. So that's a good clue. Maybe if I don't fully understand how this is working, this is where I go to the actual Django docs. Let's look up range here. Query set range. All right, so Django provides a range of query set refinement methods that modify either a type of results returned by query set or the way. Okay. So filter returns a new query set. Where's range? Sorry, range. That's not what I want. All right, there we go. Range test inclusive. So this is, again, telling me how I can use range. You can use range anywhere. You can use between in SQL. So range is equivalent to the between keyword in SQL. It's good to know. So in SQL, we write between two different values. It looks like range, you just specify the start and end value. So again, if you're looking for equivalent SQL, it looks like the docs kind of give you some information. That's kind of nice to know. But essentially, we need to append our field name with underscore underscore range, and then that will do the magic for us. So again, it's weird syntax, takes time to get used to, but in this case, we want to look at rating, and then range, instead of one value, we want to specify a range. syntax is, all right, so it's going to be either a list or a tuple. In this case, I'll use a tuple. So our min range is going to be min rating and then max rating. All right, so again, half the battle, reading documentation, not the easiest thing, but hopefully you guys are able to get through all the things that Django provides. All right, so filter, we're still filtering, but in this case, we want to have a range. So we append range, and hopefully these values will be honored. It looks like that is inclusive, right? I think that mentioned, yep, range test inclusive. So it's going to include 1.1 and 1.5. If we want to make this exclusive, I'm not sure. There might be some other ways to do that, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. All right, fail fast. Are we up to 6 tests? Yep, we're up to 6 tests. We're making progress. Let's keep the momentum going. All right, static method. What's our next test? Our rating and color. So now we're actually doing a combo test here where we have 2 different fields that we want to target. Let's implement by rating and color. And let's see how we implement this. So rating and color. This one's an interesting one. I'm curious what you guys came up with. Again, more than one way to do it. Let's ask our good friend, let's go with Marcos. Marcos, do you have any suggestion on how I could find a product by rating and by color?
Yeah, so we'll just pass the rating and color in right there as parameters. And then we could just use the filter method again.
Okay, so we do objects dot filter.
And then we could use the field names rating and color and set them equal to rating and color.
Okay, so we have desired ratings are, so you're saying I could do desired rating and then what would be a comma?
Yep.
Desired or color equals desired color. All right, cool. So it looks like we can maybe target 2 different fields. So we have 2 values. This is like a where clause where we have rating equals this and color equals this. Let's see if this works. So run that. All right, so I don't think we passed that one. Let's see. Oh, because I mistyped it. That is the second time I made that mistake. All right, there we go. So we did pass it. Great suggestion. So again, these methods are flexible. You can pass in multiple values and it looks like it works just fine. I actually did this a different way, and this is kind of using that Q object, which we kind of talked about. Again, there's a lot more to learn about it, but I imported, what was it, from Django.db.models. Import Q. This Q object's very simply named, but it gives you a lot of capabilities. So this is an excellent answer. This is one way to do it and probably the easier way to do it. Q objects give you some weird syntax, but lets you kind of combine multiple queries. So I could do something like Q rating equals desired rating. And then I could do an and, I think. Q color equals desired colors. So these are queries basically, and I'm combining them with an and. So this would kind of search for both of these items. I think that is the way I do it. But I like Marcus's answer better, so we'll go with that. Rob works.
Yeah, Ankur, can you append different query methods, almost like we do in JavaScript or Python, to the end of?
Absolutely. So let's say we filtered and found an answer here, but we want to exclude something. So let's say we exclude, I don't know what we're returning here. Let's say we're getting product 7 back. So we're only getting 1 item back. So 3.5 in maroon. Well, let's say we want to exclude any color that is maroon. Let's just say we don't want any maroon products. Well, now this will take the result of whatever this returned and then run another query on it to exclude anything that has color maroon. So in this case, I would expect nothing to come back. Let's see if our test case grabs that. But yes, you can chain these together. That makes it, again, very easy to work with. So notice we got nothing back when I was expecting 7. So the exclude took the result and then did another query on it. So you have chaining, definitely something we'll see with these methods. All right, let's keep this going. Static method. Def. What are we on to? We're on to test 7. So this is or. The first one was and. We need something that is both rated 3.5 and maroon. Now we want something that is or the color value. So let's do copy that. We need same parameters, but this is going to be an or, not an and. So any suggestions here? Let's go with Shun.
Yeah, so I had the same thing you had on the when you used Q for the rating and color, but just change it to or.
Gotcha. Okay, so we're going to use that Q object. Again, I had to import that. I'm using Django 3.1 or something, so I think this syntax might be different for Django 4. I think someone mentioned that yesterday during their challenges. But the Q object should exist in whatever version you're using. So if I do product.objects.filter, this is where we can do an or by doing 2 separate queries. We'll do rating equals desired rating, and then or, so the pipe symbol. If you're not familiar with this, this is where documentation. So let's go to Django Q object, making queries. Let's look for Q on here. Again, I'm not going to bore you with reading documentation all the time, but Q objects. Class Q. A Q object represents a SQL condition that can be used in a database-related operations, similar to how F objects work. I'm not sure how F objects works, but look, we can combine them using the pipe symbol, which is or the and ampersand symbol, which means logical and. So complex lookups, if you want to do more of these. So this is an example where we do a query where a question starts with who or a question starts with what. Obviously, we don't want to do an and here because there's nowhere a question can start with both who and what. So or gives us an option. We just want to match one of them, not both of them. And this is equivalent where condition, where we have this or another case. So pipe means or. So I'm going to use a pipe here and do another query. So we have only one of these conditions needs to be true. Desired, this should be color, equals desired color. Hate the wrapping here. Okay, so Q objects, the rest of you here, I'm curious, did anyone solve this without using Q objects?
Yeah, I just did 2 different filter statements.
Okay, so you did, could you describe that for me? I'm curious if, again, there might be other solutions. I'm not aware. So products.objects, so you did a filter?
Yes, and I just did like ratings equals desired rating.
Okay.
And then like outside of the parentheses, I did the pipe or the or statement thing, and then I just did another products.objects.filter for the color.
Sure. Okay, so you did 2 queries, and then the or should combine them based on one or the other. Okay, cool. Let's see if that works. Let's go with that fast. So in this case, we're doing 2 separate queries, but this should be color. Yeah, glad you guys are able to come up with unique ways to solve these. Again, Q objects get a little more complicated, so let's see if this works.
Yeah, the typo for desire should be desired.
Good eyes, good eyes, good eyes, good eyes. Okay, so that did pass. I don't know why I got this solid yellow line. I guess that was weird. But that did pass. Cool. That was a good suggestion. Just to see that, Shun's suggestion works too. Q objects are beneficial also. All right, so both these work. So dealer's choice there. Then you want to come up with a different way. I'm just curious how many different ways you guys kind of found. Okay, let's keep it going. We have a bunch of test cases to get through. I don't want to make this too long. So we'll do another one, define what's next. So no color count. Returns are the count of products that have no color value. All right, sounds cool. So there's 22 products apparently that have no color count, takes in no parameter. Let's do return product objects filter. Objects.filter. So no no value would be null in the database, but for Python, the equivalent of null is none. So we want to look for, what is it, color equals none. So again, none is a Python type. That is what's equivalent to database null value. So we do this, and then we want to do the count. So count is yet another function. This will return a series or a list of results. We just want to know how many there are. So count is a method that'll do that for us. We could also do, convert this to a list and then do the length of that, right? So we saw that we can convert it to a list. So if you're not familiar with the count method, you're like, hey, I'm not sure, but I do know how to work with lists. Sure, we can convert this to a list and then take the length of that. So let's try it this way. Indentation error, yikes. All right, I definitely screwed up my indentation here. Okay, ran 8 tests. That did not work. Why did that work?
Is it
What did I miss?
objects?
Yeah, shame on me. Sorry for all the typos. There we go. So that passes. We convert it to a list, but just to show you, you can use tap count. I know it's not exciting to see the same thing in different ways all the time, but count, again, if you're unsure what that does, you can read documentation, but effectively it'll count how many results you get and just return a single value. Probably not too amazing to dive deep into that. All right, so we passed that test case. In the interest of time, I don't want to maybe go through all of these. So let's kind of jump down. Let's go with, actually, the next one seems interesting, so I'll go with that one. So below a price or above a rating. So now we got to get into comparisons. Curious if anyone was able to crack this riddle. So we want to actually compare below or above. So below price and then above rating. All right, so we might need to use some Q objects here. Or we could do the way I think John Price suggested. So let's do 2 separate queries. Let's do product.objects.filter. How do we just do one half of this? How do we do something below price? Now, if I'm not sure, hey, documentation maybe has an answer. Go to API reference or query set API reference, look for less than. Nope, that's not what I want. All right, LT. Where is this listed under? This is listed under field lookups. So looks like we can use __ exact if we want exact value, iExact for in case sensitive. So there's a whole bunch of ones. We saw contained yesterday, I think. I introduced that. But scrolling down this list, it looks like there's a GT, which is greater than, and also an LT that I could append. Well, there's also GTE, so if I want greater to or equal to, I'd use that. Again, we just need to follow their syntax. So field name, __, and then the lookup that we want to do. In this case, we want to do greater than and less than. So that seems like something useful. So price should be less than. Looks like not equal to, so I'll use less than, and then below price. And then we could do a separate query. If we do product.objects.filter, and then we want to do, what is it? Rating. We want to use GT, which stands for greater than, and then above rating. Hopefully I have no typo, and I do. Man, one of these tests I should be able to pass without having a silly typo. I had an indentation error, I forgot my colon, I mistyped objects. Cannot resolve %s into field. What did I screw up now? Price and cannot resolve keyword price. So let's look at my model. Models.
Price. I think it's price sense.
Yep, thanks. Thank you. I did not read my model correctly. Price sense. Okay. All right, up to 10 tests. We still have half to go, and I don't want to drag this on. So let's just pick a couple ahead. So Gonna scroll through my tests, see ones that seem maybe interesting. So alphabetical order, there's an order by query parameter that you can use to kind of sort. So I'm gonna skip over that. By manufacturer, return a list of manufacturer names that match query. Okay, let's do this one. I'm gonna comment out this one. I don't wanna waste too much time on these. So I'll put these out. All right, so let's do test 12, which is static method, define a function, and we're gonna call that function manufacturer names for query. I have a long name, and it looks like it takes in a manu name. All right, so we should return the names, not the IDs, right? For these past ones, we return just the IDs. How do we return a list of names? Does anyone have any ideas here? All right, let's not forget my colon. So return statement, and any ideas here?
I believe I used a list comprehension.
List comprehension, okay.
Yeah, so I filtered them first and then I just used a list comprehension on that.
All right, so let's say records equal, I'm thinking you said you did product.objects.filter where manufacturer, is any way I spell that correctly? Manufacturer, any typos? I've made enough typos for today. Hey, that was correct. All right, then we have manu name. And then you said you use list comprehension. That's certainly a good idea. So list comprehension, kind of an advanced Python thing we get to know about. So in this case, I assume it'd be like name for name in records. Does that look right?
You do name dot manufacturer, I believe.
So
I usually just do like each for each in records, or each dot name for. Sorry, if I'm making
Does it
it more
matter what you
confusing.
call it because you're just creating a variable?
It doesn't. No, it doesn't matter. I just call it each. That way it's more clear, I guess.
So with this work, so we're going to go through.
Make them the
Get the
same.
record.
I would do name for name and record. And then you want to do your condition after that.
Sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
I would do name for name and records, and then you want to do your condition after that.
Okay, so if name, so I think this should be R, wait, sorry, name that manufacturer. Is that what we're going for here? Sorry, equals manu name, like that. So we have an if statement on our for here. I'm thinking this should be maybe record. Does that work? I'm a little confused there. See what we get here.
Oh, you got a typo again.
Do a double equals. I think I did double equals.
Oh, yes, double equals. Sorry, SQL has spoiled me there.
The flip flop back between them. It's got to be the last.
Okay, so we got 4 records, which look correct. So element counts were not equal. First has 0, so did this not return what I expected? Let's see. Let's do x equals this. Let's see what this returns. All right, so we have empty lists. Obviously, my list comprehension is not correct. So what have I
So I would do R dot manufacturer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then remove the conditional statement because you're already filtering out.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so this filter is already doing that. So yeah, we don't need this thing there. Thank you. So we get the record and just show the name. Sorry, that was much simpler than I made it up to be. So the filter is happening here. So we get only the records that have the manufacturer name, and then we just want to extract the name out of that. Still failing this. R.counts. See what we're getting back here. So see what the error message says. So we got a 0. So I'm still this is failing somehow. Manufacturer.
I did a contains and then set it equal to the, or did a double. I did manufacturer double underscore contains the manufacturer name.
Okay, curious what way to do that. Is it because this is a query. So there's no manufacturer name group. We want to return anything that has a group in it. I see. So maybe do an I contains just in case. All right, product CRUD. I think we passed that test, please. Yeah. So we've gone to test number 13. All right. So the issue there was we're doing a query. So we want to find anything that has the word group in it. So in this case, Latin group, Nicholas group, instead of matching the whole item here. All right. So that makes sense. I contains. We'll do a like query. Sorry, that took longer than it should have. That was my fault there. Let's do a couple more. Let's do 15. Manufacturers for a category. So let's do category manufacturers for baby. Static method. Define category manufacturers. We take in a category. And let's see how we can do this. So I skipped over a couple tests. Let's get rid of these. All right, so it looks like we take in a category name and we'll return all of the manufacturers that make those type of products. All right, so the way we did it before, this works where we did like a list comprehension. So just to get rid of the extra stuff, we did a filter and then convert it to list here. But what if we want to do it kind of in a more Django query way? So this syntax gets a little weird as usual, but we could do products dot objects. Want to filter. And what do we want to filter on? We want category to equal, let's say, desired category, just to distinguish the names. Desired with a D category. All right, so this will return the products by ID, but we don't want the ID. So there's also a function called a value list. Maybe you guys discovered that. And you can determine how you want to list these items. So instead of doing it by ID, I want to do manufacturer. And let's look up value list just to make sure we know what we're working with. Let's see if it's on this page. Value list. That's not there. Values list is what I want. All right, so there's a values list function. This is similar to values, except that instead of returning dictionaries, it returns tuples when iterated over. Each tuple contains the value from a respective field or expression. Okay, so let's see. That way, if you only pass a single field, you can also pass flat parameter if true. This will mean the return results are single values rather than one tuples. Okay, so if I want to return just the items and not the tuples, I need to use flat equals true. Let's see what that does. So flat equals true. So again, we're going to return the manufacturer name, and we don't want them to be in tuples. So let's see if this gives us what we want. Oh, of course, I'll make a typo because what else is new? So values list is again a query function that lets you extract by a different value. All right, so losing track of which ones? All right, so category manufacturers, products not defined. Gosh, bad day of typos for me. Fingers crossed that this works. Okay, so we got to test 16. So again, we do the filtering, and then instead of returning the IDs, values list tells you, hey, instead of doing an ID, let's return the manufacturer field as the result. So it's the same thing we did here, where we did a list comprehension and just extracted the manufacturer name. In this case, we're using the values list to kind of just do it all in one swoop, where we can chain additional query functions onto our existing query. Okay, let's do one more and wrap this up. So let's do the last one. A lot of results there. All right, last one. Query 19, ordered by model length. So I think there's a question about this yesterday at stand down. Curious if you guys were able to solve this using your research skills, but we have ordered by model length. So we need to use no parameter, but we want to sort this in some manner. So if you guys, happen to know, or if you didn't, let's say, want to sort extra, let's see if this finds it. Yep, so it looks like order by. If you're familiar with SQL, there's an order by keyword. There's an order by function for Django. So it looks like I could sort by different fields. So if you need to order resulting query set by new fields, yada yada. You extra. I think I could just use order by. So let's see, return products order by. All right, so I need objects in here. Don't forget that. Let's not make product tutorial. All right, so product.objects order by. What field do I want to order by? Well, there is no length field. I could do by model. So if I order by model, that would, I'm gonna do that in quotes. This will sort by the model name, right? That's how sorting works for strings. So I don't want to sort it by the name of the model. I want to sort it by the length. So how do we actually get the length of this field and not the actual value of the field? If I'm curious, like maybe I don't know, let's do Django length query set. Count versus len. I don't know. I guess I'm back here. Len, a query set is value, we can call length on it. So I don't want to know the length of the query set. I want to know the length of the field. So let's see what else we have here. Max length, not what I want. All right, maybe I should look for a function called length. Oh. All right, so that does not seem to find anything for me. What else can I look for? So what are my choices here? So I could do counts. Count's gonna be the summary of it. What if one of my field lookups? Can I do that?
There's a capital L length that works.
Right. So yeah, that is what I use. I'm curious why I can't find it in my documentation though. So I don't want to just pull out of thin air. I want to know.
You need to be in your models rather than query sets.
What was that? It's a model function?
Models versus query sets.
Models reference. All right. So yeah, again, okay, that's what I want. Django models. All right. So length maybe. Nope. Still can't find it here. So I do know it exists. I'm just having trouble finding it, which again, I'm sure you guys dealt with this too, because if you don't know it exists, it's hard to find it. Let's do a Google search. How to find length of fields, Django model. How can I programmatically obtain a max length? I don't want max, so get rid of max. Python and Django length filter. That sounds plausible. Len, is that what I want? Nope, this doesn't seem like what I want. All right, so the answer, again, not getting the answer in a good way, but there's a length function here. I might need to import it, perhaps. Yeah, so this is a function coming from Django DB models functions, import length. Again, I know that was an example. Finding is the hardest part, not using it. So it looks like there's a built-in function called length. If you want to learn more about it, we can kind of look into models functions. So let's see if there's reference for that. Django model functions.
You Google Django database functions.
All right, think we're on the right track here. So there's a length function we used somewhere here. Length, text function. So apparently there's a bunch of text functions we use. We use length, lower, see what lower does, accepts a single field, lowercase representation. All right, so it looks like these aren't query functions. These are database functions for Django, but length is what we used here. So it took a while to find it. Apologies for not knowing exactly where it came from, but in this case, accepts a single text field and returns a number of characters the value has. So again, length, capital L, we had to import it, and then we can use that for our result here. So this is going to say order by the length value of the field, not the actual field value. So let's see if this does what we want. Fail fast. Functions. Dot functions. Why is my Django.pb models.functions? Port. Not sure when my autofill is not working. Rely on that too much. Okay, there we go. So import it from dot functions, plural. We get the length function, then we can use that in our answer here. Okay, that took a while. We skipped over some, but hopefully you guys were able to get to the answers here. Again, half the battle, more than half the battle is finding the documentation. I know I kind of struggle with that. So hopefully you guys had better luck to find what you wanted. Usually just doing a good smart Google should kind of lead you to the answer, like whether it be Stack Overflow or reading documentation. Okay, any questions on these query functions? Again, a lot to go through, a lot to learn. Still probably a lot more that we have not used yet.
I have a specific question on the questions channel from yesterday on 18. Not necessarily to do that right now, but maybe at the end after you get done with the lecture for today, if you can cover that one, just copy and paste it in. Okay,
so your question was, what if we return more than one, right?
Right. If there was an example where you had two rows that had the exact same length, but your result set's only given one value and it's not an array.
Gotcha. Yeah, I feel like we should be able to return a collection. So like if you do order by and then try to iterate through that. So whenever there's like an equal range function, I'll have to look into that. So yeah, we'll do it at stand down if we have time for that. All right, let's just wrap this up because we do have a lecture to get through.